Hey guys, tonight we're going to take on what was possibly one of the most essential yet profoundly unglamorous jobs in medieval Europe. We're becoming a gong farmer, a night soil man, the unsung hero of urban sanitation. Honestly, if you were suddenly dropped into 14th century London or Paris to do this job, your biggest problem wouldn't just be the smell, it would be surviving the first night without breaking a dozen unwritten rules. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, maybe drop a comment and let me know what city you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see where our little community of night owls is spread across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The last sliver of the sun disappears behind the jagged silhouette of the cathedral spire. A final, weak orange glow bleeds across the horizon, painting the underside of the clouds in shades of bruised purple and tired gray. For most of the city's inhabitants, this is a signal to retreat. The blacksmith's hammer has fallen silent, the weaver's loom is still, and the intoxicating scent of the baker's evening bread is fading from the air, replaced by the damp, earthy smell of the cooling cobblestones and the ever-present hint of wood smoke. Shutters are being bolted, doors are being barred, and families are gathering around the meager light of a candle or the warmth of a hearth. But for you, this is not an ending. This is the beginning. The deep, resonant toll of the church bell for Compline, the last prayer service of the day, echoes through the narrow, winding streets. This is your alarm clock. As the final vibrations fade into the growing quiet, another bell begins to ring from the city gates, the curfew. It's a slow, methodical clang, a warning for all good citizens to be indoors, to extinguish their fires, and to surrender the city to the night. For them, it's a command to cease. For you, it's a starting pistol. You rise from your simple straw pallet in the corner of your small, single-room dwelling. It's tucked away in one of the less desirable parts of the city, perhaps nestled right up against the city wall, where the rent is cheap and the neighbors don't ask too many questions. Your muscles, accustomed to this strange, inverted schedule, begin to stretch and loosen. You are a creature of the dark, a necessary shadow that flits through the city while it sleeps. You are a gong farmer. It's a strange title, isn't it? Gong is a very old Anglo-Saxon word derived from gongen, which simply means to go. So, in a weird, roundabout way, you are a farmer of the goings, a polite, almost poetic euphemism for the reality of your profession. You are the one who cleans the city's latrines, the cesspits, the privies. You are the one who deals with the waste that everyone produces, but no one wants to acknowledge. Without you, this thriving, bustling hub of commerce and faith would quite literally drown in its own filth within weeks. Disease would fester, the streets would become impassable, and the air would turn from merely unpleasant to lethally toxic. Yet, you are an outcast. Your work is vital, but it renders you socially invisible at best and actively shunned at worst. During the day, you keep to yourself, but at night, the city is yours. The darkness is your cloak, a strange kind of professional privilege. Historians are still piecing together just how formal this arrangement was. Were you part of a rudimentary guild with set prices and designated territories? Or were you more of an independent contractor operating in a legal gray area, your livelihood depending on private agreements and your ability to work unseen? The evidence varies wildly from city to city and even from decade to decade. In some places, like London, the role was surprisingly regulated, with official titles and designated dumping sites. In others, it was a far more precarious existence. You don't ponder these larger questions. You are focused on the immediate. The air grows cooler. The last drunken shouts from the tavern on the corner have subsided into a low murmur. You can hear the distant, lonely cry of the night watchman, announcing that all is well, a statement that feels both reassuring and deeply ironic to you. You pull on your thick, worn leather apron, the surface stiff and darkened from years of service. It's time to go. Your tools and the city's secrets await you in the quiet dark. You step out of your small room into the narrow, enclosed space of your own tiny yard, or perhaps just a shared lean-to shed. This is your workshop, your armory. Here, under a sagging roof of thatch that smells perpetually of damp earth and old wood, are the tools of your trade. They are not gleaming or noble, but to you, they are extensions of your own body, as familiar as your own hands. First, there is the cart. It's a simple, two-wheeled contraption, built of sturdy but rough-hewn planks of pine or elm. It's not much more than a large, deep box on an axle, with two long handles extending from the front for you to push and pull. One of its wheels has a distinctive, predictable, mournful groan that announces your presence to the sleeping stray cats and the rats skittering in the shadows. You've tried to fix it a dozen times with a dollop of precious animal fat on the axle, but the squeak always returns like a stubborn old friend. It's your signature sound in the silent city. You check the wooden pins that hold the wheels in place, ensuring they are secure. It's a lost wheel in the middle of a job, especially on a sloping street, is a catastrophe you cannot afford. Next, you turn to the real heart of the operation, the buckets. They are not the flimsy wooden pails used for carrying water. Yours are stout, heavy, and meticulously maintained. They are likely made of oak, bound with thick hoops of iron to withstand the immense weight and corrosive nature of their contents. Each one has a tight-fitting wooden lid. This is a crucial piece of technology, a small luxury that separates a professional from a careless amateur. The lid helps contain the formidable odor, but more importantly, it prevents spillage as you navigate the uneven, treacherous terrain of the medieval street. Over the years, the wood of these buckets has become permanently saturated, fused with a dark, pungent memory of every job you've ever done. No amount of scrubbing with sand and lye can ever truly purify them. You run a hand over the smooth, worn wood of a lid, feeling for any new cracks. Then there is the shovel. Its wooden handle is long, smooth, and shaped by the constant grip of your calloused hands, fitting your palm perfectly. The metal scoop at the end is your primary tool. You keep its edge as sharp as you can, not for cutting, but for scraping. A clean scrape means an efficient job and a satisfied customer. Alongside it might be other, more specialized implements, a long-handled ladle for reaching the deeper parts of a cesspit, and perhaps a heavy iron hook for lifting stone coverings. Each tool has its purpose, its weight, its balance. Whether these tools were your own property purchased with your hard-earned pennies, or if they were provided by some form of city, authority, or a loose-knit guild, is a question that social historians still quietly argue over in university common rooms. The evidence is scant, but you feel the weight of ownership, whether it's official or not. You are responsible for their upkeep. A broken handle means finding a carpenter willing to trade work for your strange currency, or parting with coins that could have bought bread. The animal fat for the axle, the lye for cleaning, the occasional new rivet for the iron hoops. They are all costs of doing business, nibbling away at your meager profits. This is a mainstream historical fact. For the medieval artisan or laborer, the maintenance of their tools was a constant, pressing economic concern. There's a strange, almost ritualistic quality to this preparation. You arrange the empty, lidded buckets in the cart, securing them so they don't rattle and clang, a dead giveaway to your movements. The shovel and ladle are laid alongside them, their long handles resting in specially worn grooves you've V-carved into the cart S-frame over the years. This isn't just about being tidy, it's about silence and efficiency. In the pitch black of a client's backyard, you need to be able to reach for the right tool by feel alone without a moment's hesitation. You lift the long handles of the cart. The familiar weight settles into your shoulders and arms. The squeaky wheel gives its first quiet complaint. You push open the rickety gate of your yard and roll your humble chariot out into the sleeping street. The night's first contract awaits. You push your cart through the gate, and the city night swallows you whole. The air is thick with a silence that isn't truly silent, You hear the scuttling of unseen things in the thatch of the roofs above, the gentle sigh of the wind as it funnels down a narrow alley, and the distant, rhythmic clang of the watchman's staff on the cobblestones. Your first destination isn't a client's house, but rather a brief, formal stop, perhaps at a small, designated office near one of the city gates, or maybe just a prearranged meeting with a minor city official at a specific crossroads. This is where the contract comes in. Not a contract in our modern sense, with pages of fine print and signatures. It's more likely a verbal agreement, confirmed with a nod and perhaps the exchange of a small token or a tally stick, a piece of wood with notches carved into it, which would be split in two, one half for you, one for the official, to be matched up later for payment. This practice of using tally sticks was a surprisingly sophisticated and widespread method of accounting throughout medieval Europe, serving as a kind of physical receipt for those who were largely illiterate. The official, a man named something like Thomas or William, is huddled in a thick wool cloak, single lantern at his feet casting long, dancing shadows. He doesn't look you in the eye. That's standard. He consults a slate or a scrap of parchment. The weaver on Silver Street, he mutters, his voice low and raspy. His pit is full. And the cooper near the west gate, he complains the smell is keeping his children awake. He might then specify the payment you'll receive for each job, a few pence, perhaps a sum that sounds paltry, but could be enough to buy a few loaves of bread or a small hunk of cheese. This official interaction is crucial. It gives your nocturnal activities a veneer of legitimacy. You are not just some random person mucking out latrines. You are, in a loose sense, sanctioned by the city. This was incredibly important in a society obsessed with order and hierarchy. It meant that if the night watch happened upon you, you could present your case, be allowed to continue rather than being mistaken for a thief or a vagrant and thrown into a dank cell for the night. However, there was also a flourishing private market. This is the gray area. While the city might contract you for public nuisances or on behalf of citizens who had formerly complained, many of your jobs would come from direct, discreet arrangements. A wealthy merchant, a higher-ranking clergyman, or a minor noble living within the city walls wouldn't want their sanitary issues to become a matter of public record. They wouldn't file a complaint with the city. Instead, their steward or trusted servant would seek you out, arranging a private service for a higher fee. These were the lucrative gigs, the ones that paid not just in coin, but sometimes in kinda bag of slightly stale bread, a pail of milk that was just on the turn, or a worn-out but still serviceable pair of shoes. Historians continue to debate the exact balance between these public duties and private enterprise for a gong farmer. Was it a formal public utility role, or was it a freewheeling, gig-based economy driven by who you knew and who was willing to pay a premium for discretion? The answer, most likely, is both. It probably depended heavily on the size and wealth of the city and the specific regulations in place at the time. Tonight, your official list from Thomas is short, just the 2 jobs. But you know that on your way, you'll make a detour. You have a private arrangement with a spice merchant whose house backs onto a secluded alley. He pays double the official rate and always leaves a small flask of ale by the back door. These are the jobs that make the difference between mere survival and having few extra shillings tucked away for a harsh winter or an unexpected illness. You give Thomas a slight, almost imperceptible nod to acknowledge the instructions. He makes another mark on his slate. No pleasantries are exchanged. This is a transaction, not a conversation. He picks up his lantern and shuffles off into the gloom, leaving you alone again with your cart and the list of tasks. You take a moment, fixing the route in your head. First, the Cooper, as he's closer, then a swing past the spice merchant's alley, and finally, across town to the Weaver on Silver Street. The night is young, and the work is waiting. You grip the handles of your cart. The squeaky wheel groans its familiar song, and you begin to move, a solitary, purposeful figure navigating the city's sleeping body. Your first private client, the spice merchant, lives in a tall, narrow house that leans companionably against its neighbors, creating a canyon of an alleyway. You navigate your cart into this sliver of darkness, squeak of your wheel seeming to echo tenfold between the close-set, timber-framed walls. The back door he promised to leave unlatched is, thankfully, unlatched. You slip inside, moving with a practiced silence that would do a cat burglar proud. You are not entering the house proper, but its backyard are small. It's high-walled enclosure that smells faintly of exotic things, cardamom, cloves, and damp earth. But another, more familiar and pressing aroma quickly overpowers the scent of faraway lands. In the corner, built into the thick stone wall of the house itself, is the target, a garderobe. This is a significant step up from the simple pits of the less fortunate. A garderobe is essentially a primitive indoor toilet, stone or wooden seat over a shaft that empties directly outside the wall. It's a mainstream feature of affluent medieval homes and castles, a clear status symbol. The name itself, garde-robe, is French for wardrobe, which leads to one of history's more fragrant and practical oddities. It was widely believed that the ammonia fumes rising from the waste pile below would kill moths and other fabric-eating insects. Therefore, wealthy families would often hang their expensive woolen cloaks and fur-lined robes in the small chamber of the garde-robe, making it a literal clothes protector. Your job is to clean out the pile that has accumulated at the bottom of the shaft on the outside. The merchant has provided a small, shuttered opening in the wall at ground level, specifically for you. You unlatch it, and the concentrated smell hits you all familiar, almost professional greeting. You work quickly and efficiently, your shovel biting into the compressed pile. It's a confined space, forcing you to work at an awkward angle, but the pay is good. And the ale he leaves is always a welcome bonus. As you work, you notice small, discarded items mixed in with the waste of broken comb, made of bone, some fruit pits, and even a small, tarnished silver button, probably flicked away by accident. These cesspits and garde-robe cleanouts are unintentional time capsules. Archaeologists today find them to be incredible treasure troves, revealing intimate details about past diets, health, and daily life that are never recorded in official histories. The things people discard tell a story all their own. You wonder, briefly, about the life lived inside this house. A life of soft fabrics that need protecting from moths, of imported spices that scent the very air, of a privacy so complete that one's waste is handled discreetly by a nocturnal visitor. It's a world away from the communal latrine of your own neighborhood. The exact etiquette and expectations for a job like this are something historians still debate. Was it expected that you be completely invisible, leaving no trace but a cleaner space? Or was a certain amount of noise and presence tolerated as a necessary evil? The answer likely lies somewhere in the middle of balance of discretion and the physical reality of the work. You do your best to be a ghost. You fill your first bucket, secure the lid tightly, and carefully place it in your cart. Then you return for the next. Once the space is cleared to the merchant's satisfaction, you close and latch the small door. You find the promised flask of ale sitting on a ledge, cool to the touch. You don't drink it now. That'll be for later, a small reward at the end of your shift. You tuck it safely into a pouch on your belt, give a final, quiet check of the yard, and slip back out into the alley, latching the door behind you. One job down. The spice merchant will wake to a slightly fresher morning, and you are one flask of ale and a few coins richer. Leaving the spice merchant's cloistered alley, you emerge back onto a slightly wider, though no less dark, thoroughfare. This is Silver Street, your next official destination. The moon, a pale, slivered sickle, offers little help, hiding behind a thick blanket of cloud. The darkness here is profound, almost tangible. It presses in on you, broken only by the feeble, flickering light of your own small lantern, which you use sparingly to conserve precious tallow or oil. Its light carves out a tiny, moving bubble of reality in a vast, unknowable blackness. Navigating these streets is a skill in itself. There are no street signs, no grid system. The city is a labyrinth of organic, meandering paths that have formed over centuries. You navigate by memory and by feel, the specific texture of the cobblestones under your feet, the way a certain corner always funnels the wind, the looming, dark mass of a familiar guild hall against a slightly less dark sky. Every trip is a constant negotiation with potholes, open drainage ditches running down the center of the street, and piles of refuse that citizens have casually tossed from their windows, despite laws forbidding it. This is a mainstream historical reality. Medieval urban planning was often chaotic, and keeping streets clear was a perennial struggle for city authorities. Suddenly, you hear footsteps approaching quick light and accompanied by the bobbing of a torch. You instinctively pull your cart into the deeper shadow of an overhanging second story. It could be the night watch, and while you are working legitimately, any encounter is a potential delay or complication. But it isn't a watch. A young boy, no older than 12, scurries past, holding a flaming torch high. Hey, is a link boy, a freelance guide for the night. Hey, for a small fee, these children would guide merchants or late-night revelers through the treacherous dark. Their link or torch lighting the way. It was a dangerous, precarious job for a child, but another part of the city's complex nocturnal economy. He doesn't even see you, a shadow within the shadows. You continue on your way, the silence returning. You think about the dangers of the night. While popular culture often paints medieval cities as rife with cutthroats in every alley, the reality was likely more nuanced. The greater dangers were not necessarily human. A misstep in the dark could lead to a broken ankle, so disastrous and potentially life-threatening injury for a manual laborer. Fire was a constant, terrifying threat in a city built of wood and thatch. And then there were the animals, packs of stray dogs, sometimes feral and aggressive, roamed the streets, and you occasionally hear their distant, mournful howls. The actual level of violent crime at night is another area where historians find themselves in debate. Some argue that with the curfew in effect and the majority of the population indoors, the streets were emptier and perhaps safer than during the chaotic daylight hours. Others point to court records detailing nocturnal brawls, robberies, and assaults, suggesting the darkness provided ample cover for criminal activity. Your personal strategy is simple: avoidance. You are not a fighter. Your greatest defense is your near invisibility and your intimate knowledge of every escape route and hiding place. You finally arrive at the weaver's property, a modest dwelling with a workshop attached to the front. You make your way around to the back. There, you find what you expected. Not a sophisticated garderobe, but a simple, shared privy at the far end of a small garden plot. It's little more than a rickety wooden shack built over a dug pit. This is far more typical for a craftsman or artisan. The challenge here is not architectural, but logistical. The pit is larger, serving multiple families, and the ground around it is soft and muddy. You lay down a plank of wood you carry on your cart for just such occasions, creating a stable platform to work from. The air is heavy. You lift your shovel. The night is far from over. You stand before the weaver's communal privy, the plank providing a small island of stability in the soft, damp earth. You begin your work, the rhythmic scrape and lift of your shovel becoming a soft, percussive beat in the night silence. Each shovelful is heavy, a dense mixture of organic matter and whatever else found its way into the pit. This substance, which polite society called night soil, was the entire reason for your existence. And while it was reviled, it was also, paradoxically, a valuable commodity. This is a fundamental truth of the pre-industrial world. Waste was wealth. The night soil you are painstakingly collecting is one of the most potent fertilizers known at the time. The fields outside the city walls, which are intensively farmed to feed the growing urban population, are hungry for nutrients. Your cargo is destined for them. You are a key, if unacknowledged, link in the city's food chain. You are removing a potential source of disease from the dense urban core and transporting it to become a source of life in the agricultural hinterland. There was a whole economy built around this cycle. Farmers or market gardeners would buy the night soil from you, or from the city officials who contracted you to spread on their fields, assuring a richer harvest of vegetables and grains to be sold back in the city's markets. But you work. Your shovel clinks against something hard, not a rock. You probe carefully and unearth a small, crudely made clay doll, its features worn smooth. Okay? A child's lost toy, no doubt. It makes you think of the strange things alchemists were rumored to search for in such places. While most were focused on turning lead to gold, a fringe element believed that human waste, particularly urine, held the vital essence of life. In fact, phosphorus was first isolated in the 17th century by an alchemist named Brand, who spent a ridiculous amount of time boiling vast quantities of urine in the hope of finding the philosopher's stone, a bizarre but true piece of scientific history. You, of course, are looking for no such magical substances. You toss the doll aside and continue your work. The journey with a full cart is a different beast entirely. Once you have filled your lidded buckets from the weaver's pit, your cart's weight has properly quadrupled. Every gentle slope in the street becomes a mountain to be conquered. Every pothole is a potential disaster that could tip your precious, foul-smelling cargo. You must brace your entire body against the weight, your leg and back muscles straining. The squeaky wheel now groans under the protest of the heavy load, a constant, mournful companion on your slow journey. The economic system surrounding this night soil trade is still a topic of lively debate among economic historians. How regulated was it? Was there a standard price per cartload? Did gong farmers form cartels to drive up prices? Or was it a cutthroat market where you undercut your rivals to secure contracts with the most prosperous farmers? Evidence suggests a patchwork of systems, with some cities like Paris having highly structured and taxed systems for la vidange, while other, smaller towns relied on informal, ad hoc arrangements. You are not thinking about macroeconomic theories. You're thinking about the cobblestone just ahead that is slick with some unknown moisture, and how you will shift your weight to prevent the wheel from slipping. You're thinking about the long, slow push to the city gate. You are part of a grand, cyclical system of urban metabolism, the hidden engine that keeps the city alive. But in this moment, all that matters is the strain in your shoulders, the sweat on your brow, despite the cool night air, and the next 10 feet of dark, unforgiving road. Your cart is full. The heaviest part of the journey has just begun. The journey through the sleeping city is a lonely one, but you are not entirely alone. The night has its own inhabitants, its own quiet ecosystem of souls who operate while the sun is down. As you wrestle your heavy cart through a wider market square, it's usually bustling with vendors and shoppers, but now a vast, empty expanse of stone. You see another flicker of light. This time, it's not a link boy. It's a slow-moving procession of two men in dark, hooded robes, one holding a lantern high. They are friars, perhaps Franciscans or Dominicans, heading out from their friary on some urgent nocturnal mission. Maybe they are going to administer last rites to someone who has taken a sudden turn for the worse, or perhaps delivering a secret message for their order. You pull your cart to the side, pressing yourself into the shadows of the market stalls, and bow your head slightly as they pass. They are men of God, and you are. You. They walk past without a glance, their minds on holier things. This interaction, or lack thereof, is a stark reminder of the rigid social hierarchy that governed every aspect of medieval life. You occupied different worlds, even when sharing the same dark street. A little further on, you hear a different sound, the soft, rhythmic clatter of a baker's pill against the inside of an oven. You smell the first, faint, heavenly scent of baking bread. The city's bakers were among the earliest risers, their work beginning long before dawn to ensure fresh loaves were ready for the morning rush. The Bakers' Guild was powerful in their working hours, dictated by the needs of their yeast and the demands of their customers, were another key rhythm in the city's daily cycle. Feel a pang of hunger, the scent of the bread, a stark contrast to the smell emanating from your own cart. You might also encounter the less savory characters of the night. A flash of movement in an alley could be a thief checking for unlocked doors, or a pair of lovers having a clandestine meeting, thinking the darkness would hide them. You ignore them all. Your business is with the city's waste, not its sins or its secrets. The unwritten rule of the night is to see nothing, hear nothing, and say nothing. Your survival depends on this willful blindness. The question of how these different nocturnal groups interacted, the watchmen, the friars, the bakers, the criminals, and you, is a fascinating one for social historians. Did they form a kind of loose, unspoken community of the dark, Ted, or did they exist in separate, non-overlapping bubbles, each sticking to their own tasks and routes? The general consensus is that while they were aware of each other, meaningful interaction was minimal and often dictated by suspicion. You were all ghosts to one another, passing in the night. One of the strangest beliefs you might hold, a piece of folklore passed down through your trade is about the spirits of the night. Not just ghosts of the dead, but other, older things, household sprites, mischievous imps, or malevolent spirits that were believed to inhabit crossroads and dung heaps. Perhaps you carry a small, smooth riverstone in your pocket, a simple charm to ward off bad luck. Or maybe you quietly mutter a specific phrase or prayer when passing a particularly dark or ominous-looking spot. In a world without scientific explanations for disease or misfortune, these small rituals provided a sense of control, a way to navigate the psychological as well as the physical darkness. This is a cold piece of history. For most people, the world was thick with magic and unseen forces. You finally cleared the main part of the city. The houses become sparser, the streets wider and less defined. You are approaching the city walls, the great stone barrier between the civilized world within and the wilder world without. Your cart feels heavier than ever, and your destination is almost in sight. Before you reach the city walls, your route takes you through one of the city's poorest quarters. The character of the streets changes dramatically. The cobblestones, if they exist at all, are broken and uneven, devolving into a muddy, rutted track. The houses here are not tall, proud structures, but low, sagging hovels made of wattle and daub, crammed together so tightly that their sagging roofs almost touch, blocking out what little moonlight might have filtered through the clouds. The air here is different too. The general miasma of the city is concentrated, thick with the smells of overcrowding, poverty, and poor sanitation. Your job here is not for a private client. It's for the community, which means it's for no one and everyone at the same time. You are heading for the district's public privy. It's not a pit behind a single house, but a large communal cesspit intended to serve dozens of families. And it is, as you expected, a disaster. The simple wooden structure over the pit is leaning at a precarious angle. The pit itself is overflowing, a dark, viscous, slick, seeping out and pooling on the surrounding ground. This is the reality of sanitation for the medieval, urban poor. A wealthy merchant might have a private, relatively clean garderobe. The vast majority of the population relied on these poorly maintained, overused communal facilities. The stark contrast between the facilities of the rich and poor is a cornerstone of urban history, a physical manifestation of social inequality. Your work here is harder and far more unpleasant. There is no discreet back door, no flask of ale waiting. You are in full view of the dark, silent windows of the surrounding hovels. You have to clear not just the pit, but the hazardous overflow as well, scraping the semi-liquid filth from the mud. It's slow, back-breaking work. You use the long-handled ladle more than the shovel here, scooping the foul slurry into your buckets. As you work, you unearth the detritus of desperate lives, broken bits of pottery that couldn't be mended, the bones of a fish from a meager stew, a worn-out leather sole from a shoe that could be patched no more. These public pits are archaeological gold mines, offering a raw, unfiltered look at the diet and material culture of the working poor. Sometimes you find things that hint at darker stories, small animal bones from what might have been a poached meal, or a fragment of expensive cloth, perhaps stolen and discarded. The question of why city authorities bothered to clean these pits at all is one that historians have considered from different angles. Was it an early, rudimentary form of public health policy, a genuine desire to prevent the diseases that everyone knew festered in such places? Or was it driven more by fear and self-interest? The prevailing theory of disease at the time was the miasma theory, the belief that illness was spread by bad air or foul smells. An overflowing cesspit in the poor quarter could, it was feared, generate a miasma so potent it could drift on the wind and infect the richer neighborhoods. So, was the cleaning an act of charity or an act of self-preservation by the city's elite? The debate continues, but the truth is likely a combination of both motivations. You feel a sense of weary resentment as you work. The residents of this area pay their city taxes, however small, just like the weaver and the cooper. Yet the infrastructure provided for them is dangerously inadequate. You are not a social reformer. You are just a man with a cart and a shovel. But you see the injustice written in the very earth you are cleaning. You are the sole line of defense between this community and a devastating outbreak of dysentery or typhoid. You are, in this moment, the most important man in this entire district, and yet you are also the most reviled. You fill the last of your buckets, the cart, now dangerously heavy. You take one last look at the grim scene, now slightly less hazardous because of your efforts. There is no one to thank you. There is only the long, hard road to the city wall ahead. The physical toil of the job is immense, but the unseen risks are far greater. As you push the overloaded cart, your knuckles white from the strain, you are acutely aware of your own vulnerability. Every scrape on your hand, every splinter from the rough wood of your tools is a potential death sentence. In a world without antibiotics or a proper understanding of germs, a small infected cut could easily lead to blood poisoning and a slow, agonizing end. This was the constant, silent terror for medieval laborers. The concept of hygiene was fundamentally different. You might wash your hands in a bucket of cold water at the end of the night, but the soap you use, if you can afford it, is a harsh, caustic substance made from animal fat and lye. It cleans, but it also strips the skin, leaving it dry and prone to cracking. Its focus on miasma, or bad air, as the cause of disease, while incorrect, did lead to some strangely prescient folk remedies. You probably carry a small pouch of herbs around your neck or tucked in your belt. It might contain strongly scented things like rosemary, lavender, or cloves. The belief was that the pleasant, strong smell would create a protective bubble around you, warding off the foul, disease-carrying air. You might also have a pomander, a small metal ball filled with aromatic spices, which you'd hold to your nose when the stench became overwhelming. In a way, they weren't entirely wrong. They just misunderstood the mechanism. They were fighting an invisible enemy with an olfactory shield. The pay for taking on such risks was, by any modern standard, pitiful. For the 2 official jobs on your list tonight, you might earn a total of 4 or 5 pence. To put that in perspective, a skilled craftsman like a mason might earn 6 pence a day. You are earning less for a night of hazardous, back-breaking labor. However, your private arrangements, like the one with the spice merchant, pay better. That single job might have earned you as much as both official ones combined, plus the bonus of the L. This discrepancy highlights the freelance nature of your work. Your survival depends on your entrepreneurial hustle, your ability to build a discreet client list among those willing to pay for privacy. The life expectancy of someone in your profession is a grim subject that historians can only speculate on, as specific records for gong farmers are virtually non-existent. They were not a formal guild that kept membership rolls. They were often transients or belonged to the lowest rungs of the social ladder, their lives and deaths passing unrecorded. Common sense suggests that the constant exposure to pathogens, the physical strain, and the poor living conditions would have led to a significantly shorter lifespan than even the average peasant or craftsman. You see it in your own community of night workers, men who seem old and broken in their 30s, racked by persistent coughs and aching joints. To combat these ailments, you rely on folk remedies and the local wise woman or apothecary. For a cough, you might be prescribed a syrup of honey and horehound. For an aching back, a poultice of comfrey leaves. These treatments, based on centuries of herbal tradition, had varying degrees of effectiveness. Some, like willow bark for pain relief, actually worked. Others were pure superstition. You place your faith in what you can see and what has been passed down, a mixture of practical knowledge and magical thinking. As you push your cart, you feel a familiar twinge in your lower back. You make a mental note to trade a bit of your earnings for some comfrey at the market tomorrow or, rather, later today. The journey to the city wall is long, and the weight of your cart forces a slow, deliberate pace. About halfway through the sparsely populated outskirts, you allow yourself a rare luxury, a rest. You find a spot where a section of the city wall has crumbled slightly, creating a low, wide ledge of stone. It's away from any houses, shielded from the wind, and offers a clear view of the sky. You carefully park your cart, chogging a wheel with a rock to ensure it doesn't roll away. You slide down onto the cool, rough stone, your back against the massive wall that protects the sleeping city. A deep sigh escapes your lips, a sound of profound physical and mental exhaustion. For a few precious moments, you are not a gong farmer. You're just a man sitting under the vast, silent bowl of the night sky. The clouds have begun to part, and the moon, now higher in the sky, bathes the landscape in a soft, silvery light. And the stars are staggering. Without the light pollution of a modern city, the medieval night sky is a spectacle of breathtaking clarity. The Milky Way is not a faint, hazy band. It's a brilliant, thick river of light, strewn across the heavens like spilled salt. You can see constellations, not as simple connect-the-dots figures, but as rich, dense clusters of stars of varying brightness. This is a sight common to every person in your era, a shared, universal wallpaper that modern humanity has largely lost. You don't know the scientific names for these celestial bodies, but you know their folk names, the ones passed down by farmers and sailors. You recognize the plow, the seven sisters, and the bright, unwavering North Star that guides lost travelers. You might hold certain astrological beliefs, common for the time. Perhaps you were born under a certain sign. You believe it influences your temperament, your stubbornness, or your quiet patience. Seeing a shooting star might be an omen, either good or ill, depending on the direction it falls. Tonight, you see one streak across the sky, a brief, silent scratch of fire, and you feel a flicker of something, not quite hope, but a sense of wonder that momentarily lifts the weight from your shoulders. Did people in such harsh and laborious professions truly have the time or the mental energy for this kind of quiet contemplation? This is a point that social historians sometimes gently debate. It's easy for us to romanticize the past, to project our own desire for mindful moments onto historical figures. However, the human need for respite, for a moment to simply be, is likely universal. Perhaps these moments weren't long or frequent, but they were probably essential for sanity or brief. Mental escape from the grime and toil of reality. Your moment of rest is not an indulgence. It's a necessity, a way to recharge your spirit for the final leg of the journey. From your vantage point, you can hear the city breathing. The sound is different out here, a low, collective hum, punctuated by the occasional dog's bark or the distant cry of the watch. It feels like a giant, sleeping beast, its dreams filled with the commerce, prayer, and intrigue you've just spent hours moving through. Outside of it now, a satellite in its orbit. You reach for the flask of ale the spice merchant left for you. You pull the simple cork stopper and take a long, slow swallow. The ale is cool, malty, and slightly bitter. It runs down your throat, a small, welcome fire in your chest. It's the finest thing you've tasted all week. You allow yourself just a few more moments of this profound peace, watching the slow, majestic procession of the stars. The world is quiet. Your muscles ache. But for right now, under the moon and the brilliant spray of the cosmos, you feel a sliver of contentment. But the night is not over. The cart is still full. You cork the flask, push yourself to your feet, and prepare to finish your work. Reinvigorated by the rest and the ale, you take up the handles of your cart for the final push. You are now approaching the city gates. The massive stone archway looms ahead, a dark mouth leading out of the protected world, you know. During the day, this gate would be a hive of activity, with guards checking merchants' carts, collecting tolls, and controlling the flow of people in and out of the city. At night, it is closed and heavily barred, a symbol of the city's separation from the countryside. But there is always a small side gate, a postern or wicket gate, manned by a single, sleepy guard. This is your exit. The guard knows you. He might not know your name, but he knows your cart, your smell, and your purpose. You exchange a familiar, weary nod. No toll is required of you. Your service to the city is its own form of payment. He unbolts the small, heavy wooden door just wide enough for you and your cart to squeeze through. Stepping through that gate is like stepping into another world. The muffled sounds of the city are cut off behind you, replaced by the open-air sounds of the countryside, the chirping of crickets, the rustle of wind in the long grass, and perhaps the hoot of a distant owl. The air smells of damp earth, wild herbs, and decaying leaves. You have left the jurisdiction of the city and entered the agricultural lands that sustain it. This symbiotic relationship between a city and its hinterland was the absolute foundation of the medieval economy. The city provided a market and finished goods. The countryside provided the raw materials and, most importantly, the food. Your destination is a designated plot of land a few hundred yards from the walls. It might be a large communal dumping ground or a specific field belonging to a farmer with whom the city has a contract. The laws about where you could dump your cargo were often surprisingly specific and strictly enforced. Dumping in a river or too close to a clean water source could result in a hefty fine or even a day in the pillory. The health of the city's water supply, while poorly understood, was recognized as critically important. How effective this system really was at preventing contamination is, of course, a major point of historical and archaeological debate. While moving the waste outside the walls seems logical, often just relocated the problem, potentially contaminating the wells of suburban dwellers or the very fields where food was grown. The link between human waste and waterborne diseases like cholera and typhoid would be scientifically proven for centuries, but the recurring epidemics were a grim testament to the system's flaws. You reach the designated spot. The work here is simple, but no less strenuous. You unlid each bucket and empty its contents onto the growing pile. It is a slow, methodical process. This is the culmination of your night's labor, transferring the city's hidden burden back to the earth, where it will eventually be broken down and transformed into life-giving nutrients. There's a strange, almost beautiful finality to it. You are closing a circle. You pass back through the wicket gate, the guard giving you another silent nod as he bolts it behind you. The journey home is different. The cot is light and bounces easily over the cobblestones. But more importantly, the city itself is changing. The deep, profound silence of the dead of night is being replaced by the first stirrings of life. A window shutter creaks open high above you. You hear the faint sound of a cough, then the murmur of morning prayers. A lone rooster, confused by a distant lantern, lets out a premature crow. These are the first scattered notes of the city's daily symphony. The darkness is also losing its intensity, softening at the edges from inky black to a deep, bruised blue. You are now in a race against the rising sun. Your work is strictly nocturnal. To be seen by the general populace with your tools and cart would bring shame and disgust. You must be home and hidden before the city is fully awake. You finally reach your own small yard, the familiar site of your humble dwelling, a profound relief. But the night's work is not yet finished. The final, and in some ways most important, task remains: the cleansing ritual. This is not just about hygiene. It's about reclaiming your own humanity, washing away the stigma of your trade. First, you tend to your tools. The buckets, already rinsed at the stream, are now given a thorough scrubbing. You use a harsh brush made of stiff plant fibers and more of the caustic lye soap, scouring the wood until you can see the grain again. You do the same for your shovel and ladle, cleaning every crevice. You then lay them out to dry in a specific way that allows the air to circulate. This meticulous maintenance is practical. It extends the life of your expensive tools, but it also feels deeply symbolic. You are cleaning away the night. Then it is your turn. You strip off the stiff leather apron and your outer clothes, which are designated work garments, never to be worn inside your living quarters. In a large wooden tub in your yard, you begin to wash. The water's cold, drawn from your well the evening before. For most people in the medieval period, hot water was a luxury that required significant fuel and effort. The idea that medieval people never bathed is a common misconception. While they didn't bathe with the frequency we do today, personal cleanliness was valued. The debate among historians is about the methods and frequency, which varied hugely based on social class and access to resources like clean water and fuel. You use the same harsh soap on your skin, scrubbing your hands, arms, and face with a rough cloth until they are raw and red. It's a painful but necessary purification. You are not just removing dirt, you are trying to remove a scent that has seeped into your very pores, a smell that marks you and sets you apart from others. You wash your hair, your beard, trying to erase any lingering trace of your profession. This ritual is a solitary one. It's a buffer zone between your two lives, the nocturnal outcast and the anonymous daytime dweller. When you are done, you towel yourself dry with a piece of coarse linen and put on your day clothes, simple, patched, but clean. You feel lighter. The transformation is complete. You are no longer the gong farmer. You are just you. You step inside your single room. The air inside is still and cool. You bar the door, shutting out the now repeatedly growing sounds of the city. The baker's boy is now shouting his wares. The clatter of wagon wheels is growing more frequent, and the church bells are ringing for lauds, the dawn prayer. For everyone else, this is the start of the day. For you, it is the end. You have earned your rest. You pulled the simple wooden shutter over your window, plunging the room into a welcome artificial twilight. Before you can surrender to sleep, there is one final piece of business. It's payday. Your contracts with the city, authorized by the official name Thomas, need to be settled. You won't go back to the dark crossroads of last night. Instead, you'll go to a small, windowless office tucked away near the city's treasury or town hall. An office that only opens for a few hours after dawn to deal with the city's various laborers and contractors. You enter the small, crowded room. It smells of damp wool, sweat, and wet parchment. Other men are here, waiting their turn. A man who mends the cobblestones, a carter who hauls timber, a rat catcher with a cage of his furry trophies. Kay, you all share a similar status. You perform the essential, grimy jobs that keep the city functioning. You stand in line, your half of the tally stick clutched in your hand. When it's your turn, you step up to a wooden counter. Behind it sits not Thomas, but a clerk. He is a man who deals in numbers, not nocturnal arrangements. You present your half of the tally stick. He takes it without a word and retrieves the matching half from a wooden box. He fits them together. The notches line up perfectly, a silent confirmation that the work assigned was the work you were claiming payment for. This physical, tangible form of record keeping was vital in an age where literacy was a privilege, not a given. It was a system built on trust, but also on physical proof. The clerk consults a ledger, makes a small mark, and then reaches into a leather pouch. He counts out your payment. "For pence," he says, his voice flat and bored. He pushes the small, thin, silver coins across the counter. You scoop them up. They feel cool and heavy in your palm. This is the tangible result of your night's labor. The risk, the toil, the filth, all distilled into these 4 small circles of metal. You examine the coins closely. This is not out of greed, but a necessary precaution. The medieval currency system was a chaotic mix of different coinages, and the value of a coin was based on its actual silver content. A major problem was coin clipping, a practice where people would shave off tiny slivers of metal from the edge of a coin. Over time, a clipped coin would be significantly lighter and contain less precious metal, making it worth less. Being caught with clipped coins could be disastrous, and being caught doing it could lead to severe punishments, like having a hand cut off. This constant, low-level anxiety about the very nature of money was a fact of life for everyone who handled it. Your coins look legitimate. A king's profile on them is clear. The edge is intact. Historians often debate the fairness and efficiency of these payment systems. How often were laborers cheated out of their rightful wages? Did corrupt clerks demand a small fee for processing the payment? The records are mostly silent on such petty, everyday corruption, but it's safe to assume it was a constant risk for those with little power or recourse. You are lucky today. The transaction is clean. You tuck the coins deep into a small pouch tied to your belt. For pence from the city, plus the more generous payment you'll receive from the spice merchant steward later in the week, it's enough. It will buy bread, some cheese, maybe a little sausage. It will pay your rent. It will keep you alive to work another night. It is the price of your survival. You leave the office, blinking in the strengthening daylight. The street is now a river of humanity. Merchants setting up stalls, apprentices hurrying on errands, women carrying baskets from the market. You are just one more face in the crowd now, anonymous and unremarkable. No one gives you a second glance. Your transformation is financially, as well as physically, complete. You pull your collar up and head for home, your treasure secure. Your final journey of the cycle is to walk home. It's a short walk, but it feels like crossing a border. You are moving against the current of the waking city. The tide of humanity is flowing inwards, towards the markets, the workshops, the churches. You are the lone salmon swimming upstream, heading for the quiet eddies of the residential outskirts. The sensory landscape has completely transformed. The cool, damp silence of the night has been replaced by a cacophony of sounds and a riot of smells. You hear the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the shouting of vendors hawking their wares, the laughter of children chasing a dog, and the pious drone of a nearby church choir. The air no longer smells of just damp earth and wood smoke. It's thick with the scent of baking bread, frying onions raw, meat from the butcher's stall, and the overwhelming perfume of thousands of unwashed human bodies pressed together in the narrow streets. This is the mainstream reality of a medieval city, a vibrant, noisy, and incredibly smelly place. You keep your head down, your gaze fixed on the ground a few feet ahead. You make yourself small, trying to take up as little space as possible. In this world, you are now the anomaly. You are tired when everyone else is fresh. You are heading home when everyone else is starting their work. Your very presence, a man walking home to sleep in the broad daylight, is a quiet declaration of your strange, inverted life. You pass a woman scrubbing her doorstep with a bucket of water. She glances up, sees you, and her friendly expression tightens almost imperceptibly. She looks away, suddenly very interested in a stubborn spot on the stone. This tiny, fleeting interaction is everything. You are clean, your tools are hidden, but your profession clings to you like a shadow. People know who the night workers are. They live in certain areas, keep certain hours. You are a necessary part of the city's functioning, but you are not, and can never be, truly part of its daytime community. This social segregation is a topic that fascinates sociologists and historians. Was it a formal shunning, or a more subtle, unspoken understanding? In many societies, professions dealing with waste or death were considered unclean, both physically and spiritually. This often meant they were forced to live in specific quarters, sometimes even outside the city walls. While you might not be legally barred from the market, you are socially barred from easy interaction. This is the price of your trade, paid not in coin, but in social distance. See children playing a game with knuckle bones in an alley. They stop and stare as you pass, their game forgotten for a moment. They don't know the word stigma, but they feel it. They have heard their parents whisper, "You are the boogeyman, the man who comes in the dark." You are a story they are told to make them behave. You offer them no expression, no acknowledgement. You just keep walking. You finally turn onto your own small, quiet street. The noise of the city center fades behind you. Here, the rhythms are different. You might see other nocturnal workers like yourself heading home, or the wives of day laborers beginning their long day of domestic chores. There is a sense of shared, weary understanding here. No one stares. Everyone is just trying to get by. You reach your own door, the rough wood a welcome sight. You have successfully navigated the final, and perhaps most difficult, part of your journey, the re-entry into a world that needs you, but does not want to see you. You stand before your own door, the rough wood, a shield against the world. You slip the key, a heavy piece of iron, into the lock and turn it. The sound of the bolt sliding home is one of the most satisfying sounds you know. You are safe. You are hidden. Inside, the single room is your sanctuary. The wooden shutter you closed earlier bathes the space in a cool, artificial twilight. The noise of the city is a muffled, distant roar, like the sea heard from inside a seashell. It's the soundtrack to your slumber. Your straw pallet in the corner looks more inviting than a king's feather bed. You don't fall into bed immediately. There is one last, small ritual. You take a piece of the coarse, dark bread you bought 2 days ago and a small sliver of hard cheese. You sit on a low stool, the only piece of furniture in the room besides your bed. and you eat slowly. This small meal isn't about hunger so much as it is about transition. It's an act of normalcy, a final anchor to the world of the living before you drift into the oblivion of sleep. The bread is stale, the cheese is salty, but it is yours. It is the fruit of your labor. As you eat, you look around to your small world, patched woolen blanket folded neatly on the pallet. A single wooden bowl and spoon, washed and drying on a shelf, the faint smell of lye soap and damp wood. It is a sparse existence, stripped down to the bare essentials of survival. Yet it is a life you have carved out for yourself in the cracks of a society that both needs and scorns you. The very concept of a hero in the medieval context is a fascinating subject historians endlessly explore. It was almost always tied to knights in shining armor, pious saints, or noble kings. The idea of an unsung hero of the working class, a figure whose heroism lies in their quiet, essential labor, is a much more modern concept. Yet, it's hard to look at your nightly routine and not see a form of quiet, grimy heroism. You fight a nightly battle against filth and disease, not with a sword, but with a shovel. Your victory is not a conquered castle, but a city that can survive another day without succumbing to its own waste. You are the guardian of the city's health, the keeper of its forgotten underbelly. You finish your meal. The deep, bone-weary exhaustion that has been chasing you all night finally catches up. It's a heavy, welcome blanket. As you cross the room, your footsteps soft on the packed earth floor. You lie down on the straw pallet. It rustles softly beneath you, smelling faintly of dry grass and dust. You pull the woolen blanket over you, its familiar way, a final comfort. You close your eyes. The muffled sounds of the day, the distant hammer, the faint shouts, the rumble of carts begin to blur. They are no longer individual sounds, but a single, continuous, soothing hum. You have done your work. You have faced the darkness, carried the burden, and returned to your haven. You are the city's secret, and now it is time for the secret to sleep, to gather strength, to be ready to rise again when the sun sets once more. In the heart of the bustling, sunlit city, one of its most vital engines has just shut down for a well-earned rest. You drift away, a nameless, faceless, indispensable hero, finally at peace. And now, you too can let go. The weight of the cart fades from your shoulders. The rough handle of the shovel softens and dissolves in your grip. The dark, winding alleys of the past straighten out and become the quiet, familiar path into your own deep slumber. The distant clang of the watchman's staff is just a gentle, rhythmic hum, a soft beat that rocks you slowly, slowly into rest. Let the sounds of that long-ago city melt away, replaced by the soft whisper of your own breathing. Feel the tension in your own muscles release, just as the gong farmer let go of his heavy burden. There are no more pits to clean, no more gates to pass. The work is done. The night was long, but it is over now. All that remains is this peaceful, quiet, dark, a gentle, welcoming space where you can finally be still. Let your thoughts drift like clouds across that vast, medieval sky, and then let them fade, leaving only the deep, quiet peace of a well-deserved sleep. The city is safe, and so are you.